Welcome to CJ's Chat Box. I have a very special guest today because I was fortunate enough to run into him in the green room at TV6 maybe a month ago. And as we started chatting, I thought, oh my goodness sake, you have to tell your story. So welcome to Hugh Wynn. Good to have you, my dear.
Thank you for having me today.
You've got such an interesting story, and I really want to start at the very beginning. So please tell me again where you were born, about what time of the year, what year that was.
Right. Yeah, I was born in Vietnam in December 5th, 1967.
Okay.
My mom was a Vietnamese woman, and she was working at Nha Trang, which is by the ocean in Vietnam, down.
Uh-huh.
And she met my dad, who was an American soldier.
Okay.
And so they, were together for a little while. And when she found out she was pregnant with me, she went to look for him.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, people at the base told her that he died. And so, she was sad and was in shock. But here she is pregnant with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so... So fast forward to December 5th when I was born. Once I was born, it was she told me it was a rainy day. It was like in a barn where we had nurses, right, back in the days, who helped out with my delivery. Mm-hmm. And so within like 6 months, she was young. My mom was 17 when she had me. Mm-hmm. And so she took me to her mom and dad, my grandparents, and asked them if they can raise me. So my grandparents raised me in Saigon when I was 6 months old. Okay. So, it was tough remembering back then because, I looked different. I had light hair, I was light skinned, and so I was picked on, got in a lot of fights in Vietnam, got picked on by kids because I just looked different. Mm-hmm. And so, but my grandparents, they were amazing. They did a good job raising me. And my aunts, my mom's sister, I had 3 aunts that help out, and so that's I grew up in Saigon.
You all lived together then? Your aunts and your grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
How old were your grandma and grandpa about at that time?
My grandparents, let's see, I'm 54, so my grandparents were like in their 40s. Okay. I think. Like 40s. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's interesting to me is also the fact that she did leave them with you, knowing you'd probably be brought up a little bit better there. And it sounds like they were really good with you and taught you some values. And so you did go to school there, but you did suffer some bullying.
Yeah, so, growing up there was tough, like I was telling you. And so my uncle served in the South military. Mm-hmm. And so my grandparents decided to send me to school there, to live on the base and go to school at a nun school. Oh, and wow. So it was a great experience, right, living on the base. But toward the end, there was a lot of fighting, a lot of bombing, and my uncle said it's not safe anymore. Oh. So, he took me back to Saigon. Okay. And that was toward the end of the war, right? And so I remember 2 months before the fall of Vietnam, my grandparents, who did a great job raising me. And by now I had a sister. I was 7 years old now. And so they decided there was a program that was offered by the Americans, which called Operation Baby Lift. Okay. So what that means is they gave me and my sister up for adoption, and we could come to America and live and get adopted and live in a free country. Okay. And so they were afraid for us because we were different. The communists didn't like us very much, right? Mm. Here's an American soldier, and here's a South Vietnamese woman. Mm. And so it was tough. And I remember being at this big house where they were getting us ready to fly to America. Mm-hmm. And so I remember my sister, she was only like 2. She was crying, and we didn't know what was going on. Why are we here with a bunch of kids, right? Mm-hmm. I was 7 and a half, so I knew a little more. Yeah. I remember bits and pieces. And so we spent the night, and the next morning, thank God, my aunt came and got us back. And I found out many years later, my grandparents, my grandmother said, we'll just die together. She missed us so much because he raised us, and we're like her family,
Yeah.
And so we were lucky, And so then we didn't know what was going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
but we know that we were losing our country.
Mm-hmm.
And so my aunt, who worked at the American Embassy, she came home one day and said, "Hey, they're offering us a chance to go to America."
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how our journey started.
Mm-hmm.
And so my aunt was able to bring my grandparents,
Mm-hmm.
her sisters, my sister and I, so 7 of us.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, believe it or not, she didn't want to come.
didn't
She
wanna
wanted
come.
to stay. And so she stayed.
Wasn't there an incident also where you were going to go and then you didn't go on that particular plane
Yeah,
because
so-
your grandmother
so-
said no?
So yeah, you're absolutely right. So yeah, my aunt picked us up like at 10 in the morning. That plane in the afternoon crashed into Riceville.
Oh.
So my sister and I should have been on that plane, but God had a plan for us, I believe,
Yes.
because we weren't on that plane. But
Mhm.
over 100 children died during
Oh
that.
my- Okay, so, but then you ended up getting back on another operation? before
Yes.
that?
So what happened was my aunt worked at the American Embassy after, thank God we didn't get on that plane, right?
Yes.
And so we were picked up, and we were on a bus, a special bus that took us to the airport, Dunsanyet Airport.
Okay.
And so when we got there, it was so chaotic. Everybody was trying to rush into that, the airport, trying to climb walls, and
Oh,
I remember
goodness.
all the military soldiers, American soldiers, trying to keep people out, right? And they allowed us in because we were allowed to go in.
Yeah.
And so we were lucky. We got in, but during that drive in, I remember people hanging on next to us underneath the bus carriage, trying to get in. Freedom was right behind that gate. So we got in, and a few hours later at the airport, unfortunately, they bombed the runway, and so now we were
Oh.
stuck without
Any way to get out?
any way to get out. So I remember spending the night overnight on the floor, and thank God the next morning there was a program called Operation Frequent Wind, and it was
Okay.
executed, the last option, to rescue everyone at the American Embassy
Mm-hmm.
and also at the airport by helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all ushered back in the back of the airport, and helicopters started landing. And by now, they told our family and everybody there, just bring your most important documents.
Mhm.
So we left our luggage. My aunt bought a folder with important documents. That was it. That's all we came over to America with. And so we all got on the plane, and we landed on the U.S. Midway. And we were rescued, and we landed on the USS Midway in San Diego. Without that ship, I wouldn't be here. So that ship rescued over 3,073 refugees.
Oh my goodness sake.
And so it was an amazing time, and I remember that day landing on the ship. We slept down below the deck on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and from there we went to the Philippines, to Guam, and then we flew to El Toro base.
Okay.
And that's where my aunt chose to come to California,
Mhm.
because there was options that you could go to Minnesota, Oklahoma,
Don't go to
other
Minnesota.
places.
It's cold.
Yeah, so my aunt picked the right spot. She picked California.
Yeah.
So we landed on El Toro base, and then they put us on a bus, and we ended up at Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
So over 50,000 refugees went through Camp Pendleton.
Mhm.
And so we camped out there,
Mhm.
our family, for like 3-4 months. And back then, you have to wait for a sponsorship. So what that means is somebody has to sponsor your family, and they have to take care of you for rent and money and food for like almost 2 years.
Wow.
So it was harder for us because we had 7 in our family.
Mhm.
So we saw a lot of couples that were sponsored immediately. Ours took longer.
Mhm.
But eventually, Labor Day weekend, I'll never forget, we were sponsored by Grace Lutheran Church in El Centro, California.
Yes.
And so, it was a blessing. And so the sponsor came, and they picked us up and drove us to El Centro. They gave us a brand new house that they all bought, rent free for over a year. And while my 3 aunts, they had to adjust, and they all found jobs within the next few months. And I can't believe what my aunt went through, what she did as a woman, how much she took care of us, and she worked 2 jobs, right? And she learned how to drive a car. They gave us a car, I remember it was a hatchback Volkswagen, stick shift.
Oh,
So,
wow.
she didn't know how to drive it, so she learned how to drive that.
Wow.
And El Centro was country. It was. It's by Mexicali, way out there.
Yeah.
And when summer was hot,
Yes.
and winter was very cold. I remember. So I started going to school there, 4th grade, and I was in ESL because I only spoke Vietnamese, so I had to learn how to speak English.
You said you were bullied because your skin was lighter when you were in Vietnam. Now, are you more not bullied, or was there?
No, it was same because as I got older, seems like I look more Asian, and so they would tease me on the way I look. My eyes are smaller, things like that. So it was tough, and even in El Centro, gotten a few fights too.
Yeah, you said that when they did start bullying you, that you made up your mind that you were not going to take it. You were going to defend yourself.
Yeah.
How did you go about doing that? Did your grandfather help you, or did you just make up your mind on?
No,
duking it out?
I after a while you get picked on and get name calling. You just gotta defend yourself, and I've always, felt that I needed to stand my ground. So I defended myself, and things got better as we went on.
Yeah.
And what was hard is during this time my grandfather was older, so and my grandma, right? They were a little older. I mean, to extent where they couldn't really teach me sports or anything.
Right.
So I had to teach myself how to play baseball, and I joined Little League.
Oh, good.
Excelled in that and did really
What position did you play?
Oh, I played short, pitching, second,
Oh,
anywhere.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyplace.
I did really good. And so I remember in 1976, 4th of July, our whole family was baptized at Grace Lutheran Church.
Oh, you were.
And so we became Christian that day.
Oh, wow.
And it was nice. Our pastor, what a great church.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity they gave us. And we were the first Vietnamese family to ever come through El Centro.
Really?
And so, yeah. And I think we had one more family, but I don't think they lasted. They didn't like the weather.
Oh.
So they left right away.
What I really pick up on what you're telling me is, again, like you said, you can't believe that your aunts did those things, but when you're free, the price you pay, they worked double jobs each, and your grandparents took care of the younger ones, but your aunts did their share, learned to drive a car.
Yep.
I imagine they felt privileged just to have a car and have a job because of where they came from. So that's important to, your values, again, were important.
For sure, yeah.
Bring.
I was taught from my grandparents, which I really love, is to respect your elder, to treat people how you want to be treated. And I learned from my aunt at a young age where they work hard. You earn what you...
Yeah, it's a work ethic.
It's a work ethic, yeah. They work really hard, and I learned that.
Yeah.
That nothing is given to you. And so when one of my aunts, she worked at a motel, cleaning rooms.
Yeah.
The other aunt sold at a factory. And then my aunt that worked at the embassy, she had a tutoring job. She spoke English. She was very educated. She worked at the school as a teacher aide, and also she worked even back then, at like JCPenney and Woolworth and things like that.
Did
and
extra work.
Yeah, so it was amazing watching them just to work to take care of us.
With what you were going through, as far as all the crashes and the planes and the rush and all that kind of thing, but still you're 7 years old and you're a guy, boy. The excitement was it like a big adventure at times, that if you got over the other stuff that you just thought, wow, I'm on a ship? And did you ever were able to appreciate that, or were you too scared?
Yeah, unfortunately I was young, and I only remember bits and pieces.
Okay.
Some good memories, how we got here, how I played in Guam and sit on the wall and watch the military planes take off. Those are good things I remember. Yeah. And the Midway was amazing. It was a big ship. It was nice. And so, it was a great journey to America, and we're just happy to be free when we got there.
One of the things before, and we'll have to go back again, but I remember you telling me about the USS Midway is that they do have an anniversary, and that the people that were in charge, how old they are now, and that they still come.
Yeah, so what the Midway like to do is every 5-year commemoration. And so I was lucky to join them on the 40-year commemoration. And it was amazing. I mean, they invite all 3,073 refugees that were rescued on that ship. And that day we had almost 4,000 people in the deck of the ship. And what was very emotional for me was to get to talk to the captain, right? To talk to the air boss, which they both have become good friends of mine. But they are the men that were responsible for rescuing all these refugees.
Wow.
And so that was amazing. I mean, when I was there, I thanked them and some of their military's people that work on the ship. They were there. There was like 15 there, and it was just such an emotional day. Just to just say thank you for rescuing
Yes.
us and everybody here. And you know, by now I was a elected official, and to become the first Vietnamese American elected clerk recorder in the whole country, and to be able to speak on that ship, the ship that rescued me when I was 7 years old. It was just so much emotion was running through me, chills, and just thanking God that I was there.
Yes.
It's just amazing.
That's a wonderful commemoration for them to do that, and for those people to be there to meet the people as you've gotten older.
Yeah, it was amazing to talk to people
with your life.
and other refugees that went through what I did, right? And so unfortunately the 45th commemoration was canceled because of COVID. And so I'm hoping, we just went through 47 years, but they do 5, and I'm trying to convince them
to do it first.
I'm trying to convince them to do it every 2 years, because the air boss is almost 90 years old.
Okay.
The captain is over 90. I want them there with us.
Yes.
And so 3 years from now, I pray they're still here, but I think they should do it every 2 years from now on.
Just for that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important.
How long were you in El Centro? How old were you when you moved out of?
Yeah, we lived in El Centro for 4 years. In 1979, my aunt found a job in Orange County.
Okay.
And she said, you know, I don't think there's much opportunity as much here in El Centro than in Orange County. So she moved all of us to Orange County. We moved to Orange, city of Orange.
Okay.
And we lived right by Crystal Cathedral back then, right there in the back. We rented a house. And I went to Lamson Elementary, 5th grade.
Okay.
That was my first school in Orange County.
All right.
And then from there we moved to Santa Ana. And I went to McFadden Junior High. And then Saddleback High School, which is where I went for 4 years. And I played competitive sport and basketball, made a lot of good friends. Things got better.
Yes.
Even though I did get picked on sometimes, some of the Vietnamese students felt like I didn't hang out with them as much. And so there was always that push.
You don't fit in what?
Yeah, so it was tough. I remember bits and pieces, but I competed in basketball and baseball very competitively, made varsity. And so it was, I enjoyed high school. It was good. Met a lot of good friends.
And then did you go into like JC College or what did?
Yeah, so afterward I went to Santa Ana College. I did a little bit, maybe 2 semesters. My wife and I, we've been friends since high school.
Okay.
And so, we ended up getting married young, and we had our son when I was 22. So then, I was going to school, but also trying to find a job so I can help the family, right? We were young. We were so poor. Our family would help us. We didn't have food to eat.
Yeah.
As a couple, it was tough. We were struggling. And so, I started just working jobs, I worked at the gas station for a couple of years. That was, now I look back, it's pretty amazing. And, applied at Pep Boys back then and places like that. So I did my rounds. And then we moved to Houston for 1 year. I had a good friend from high school that said, hey, come out here, give it a chance. We had nothing going on here. We were like broke. We had no money.
Yeah.
Our families were helping us just to feed us. So I went out there. It was good. I made good money. My wife didn't work. By now we had my son. He was 2. But it was like working 6 days a week. And, we missed our family. She missed her mom and dad so much. And I missed my grandparents. Yeah. And so we just said, let's go back to Orange County. And so we went back. And my wife found a job first. And I came back. I found a job with the newspaper. It was called California Newspaper. It was the Los Angeles Daily Journal back in the days.
Okay.
And so I worked there. Went down to the county every day to write down names for fictitious business name. People file fictitious business name. And what we did was to publish their adjudicated FBNs, fictitious name. And so I guess I was down there so much that all the county employees, they liked me. They said I was so nice, and they told their boss, and he offered me a job with the county.
Wow.
And so he said, they're going to merge the office, the clerk, and the recorder. I'm going to run against the recorder's guy, and I want to hire you as extra help. So back then, extra help was tough because it was a full-time job, but no benefit. and no holiday pay. And it was important for me because I needed it for my young family, right?
Yeah.
But I took a chance and I told him I'll do it. And so I worked extra help for 12 months. And thank God my boss won the election. And then he promoted me to document examining. I became permanent, got insurance, holiday pay, and then became a recordable document supervisor. Then I became a manager. So my career started going up, and I worked really hard. I never gave up on anything, and just started moving up the ladder. And then my former boss passed away in 2002. Then I had a new boss for 3 years, and then I had an opportunity to promote with the clerk of the board for the board of supervisor. So that was a big promotion. I took it, went there for 7 years, learned so much. It was the best move I've ever made.
Yeah.
Learned how to do budget, business planning, learn how the county work, and besides just recording documents, right? And so then my former boss, he won in assembly, and so the board of supervisor had to appoint somebody to finish his term. And so 900 people applied for the job.
Wow.
And so the board of supervisor interviewed 11 of us. And, you know, it was amazing that day. I still remember at home because I stayed home during the interview. After I interviewed, I went home. I didn't know people stayed there. They told us to go home. So me and my wife were at home, and my former boss, she would text me and say, okay, they just voted. You got 5 votes. Now you're the top 5. Then now you got 5 more votes, you're the top 3. So imagine sitting at home, you know, we were just like stressed, me and my wife, looking at the computer. And my former boss texted me, Darlene Bloom. And so finally, you know, I got that text that said, hey, they just appointed you a county clerk recorder. And I still remember that day, me and my wife, we just cried and hugged each other because I think it was tears of happiness of all the hard work that I have put in to finally accomplish what I wanted to do, was to become the clerk recorder. And so I remember driving back to the boardroom because all the newspaper were there to interview me. And I don't remember driving there. I was like on cloud 9. It was just
Glad you didn't get
one of the most,
anything.
I know, one of the most exciting time of my life for my job wise.
Yeah.
So I was blessed. I mean, I got an opportunity. And so then in 2014, I ran for my first election and won. Then I won in 2018, and I just won in 2022. 85% of the citizens of Orange County voted for me in 2022. We got almost 453,000 votes this past June.
I think
election.
they like you.
Yeah. So it's been, you know, for me, I pinch myself every day. I enjoy my job. I love my job. I love my staff. I really like what I do. This is my dream job. But just to sit there and think, right? To just see how far I went from coming over here with nothing and to become elected. I mean, to me, I don't know how other elected people feel, but to me it's a privilege because people are putting their trust in you.
Yes.
And so I work hard. I try. If I don't work harder than my staff, I don't think I'm doing a good job. And so I'm one of those that love what I do, and I work really hard every day, day in, day out.
You have a motto, I think. What is it again?
Dream big, work hard, and never give up.
That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah, I tell, you know, I go around and we speak at high schools and stuff, and I try to motivate all the students. You know, if I can do it, you guys can do it.
Yes.
I came over with nothing, and you know, we live in a great country that you can dream big and become anything you want to be. You want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a police officer, a nurse, a teacher, anything you can be.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just feel that, you know, there's so much opportunity.
I think that a lot of the generation today probably dreams big, but they don't have the other two.
Yeah.
To work hard and never give up. They forget that part, and that's necessary. But yours was, and again, you can see the pattern of, I mean, living with your family as tight as it was.
Yes.
And finding out how hard they worked to keep the family together.
Right.
And the fact that rubbed off on you big time.
Right.
That you don't get anywhere unless you don't try, unless you don't work.
Yeah.
And then your wife also being part of that and the tight family.
Yeah, my wife's been very supportive of me. We've been together since high school, and she's seen our journey, our ups and downs, how poor we were, how broke we were, and how much our family had to help her side, her mom and dad, and my aunt and uncle, and my grandma and grandpa.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, now I look back, I wish my grandparents were here. They passed away almost 15, 20 years ago.
Okay.
And so I know they're happy looking down, but
Yeah.
that's the only thing, you know, every 4 years when I get sworn in, I wish they were here
Yeah.
to witness it. But, you know, and then growing up all that time, like I told you, I had a missing part, even though my family was so loving, and I had a great family with my wife and my kids. You know, we have my daughter. But I always never had a dad figure, a father figure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never remember, I remember one day at an event, one of the big newspaper, I think Tom Burge, he was a big writer for the Register. And he said, you know what, you're in charge of everybody record in the county of Orange.
Yeah.
3.2 million, the most important record of their lives, right?
Yeah.
Birth, death, marriage, everything. He goes, but you don't know who your dad is. I go, yes, that's very painful for me. Thanks for reminding me. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna try to make an effort. Now DNA was better.
Mm-hmm.
So I reach out, you know, I order a kit through Ancestry.com,
Okay.
and they sent you, you know, a little jug, and you spit in that jug, a little jar, and you send it to them. And so I sent it to them, and within like, I think 2 weeks, they sent you a special secret email privately.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I opened it up, you know, you have to be a member with Ancestry. And now I have all these family members that I never knew about, right? So, but it was all far distance,
Mm-hmm.
because fifth, fourth cousins, right? And it was hard to find your dad that way, because you're talking about 5 grandmothers.
Yes. Yeah.
And so every day passed by, and I would tell my wife, oh my God, this is not as easy as they advertise.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually I started getting a second cousin. So it was very important for me not only to find my dad, but I knew my mom's side, I was Vietnamese 50%.
Mm-hmm.
But on my dad's side, I didn't know what nationality.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I was American,
Mm-hmm.
but then I knew I had some Irish in me and some stuff like that. And also medical history was so important.
Yes.
Because you go to a doctor and they ask you know any family history, and I'm like, all I know is my grandmother's side, my grandpa's side. So that was important.
Yeah.
And so it took almost 2 years through Ancestry.
Oh.
And so finally one day I got a notification that I had a first cousin, and her name was Sherry Stokes, and she lived in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
And so I sent her an email, because you can email each other through Ancestry.
Okay.
But go back before that, I would have second, third cousin. I would email saying, hey, my name is Hugh Wynn. I'm looking for my dad. They're saying you're my cousin. And oh man, I had some really mean people.
Really?
I'll tell you right now. I had a guy said, why are you bothering us? I said, I'm not trying, I don't want anything. I don't want money. I have a good career, good family. I just want to know who my father is.
Yeah.
And it was tough. They gave me a really hard time. You know, why you want to ruin our family now? And
Dear.
I almost gave up. And so finally Shirley Stokes came around, and I sent her an email, and I just told her the same thing, and she was really nice. She said, you know what, one of my uncles served in the Vietnam War. Let me ask him.
Okay.
And I said, please do that. And so she did. She asked him, and first he denied it. If you really look at it, you know, it's 50 years now.
Yes.
Later. He had a family. He was married when he went to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
He has 4 kids. And so I guess during that time he was asking for forgiveness. I found out later from his wife and his church, his kids, that there's a chance that he has a son.
Oh.
And so I told Sherry, you know, she called me, she said, I'm so sorry to break your heart, but he said he doesn't know, he doesn't think so. I said, come on, Sherry, how do I know you? How are you my first cousin? How do you know who you are?
Yeah.
I go, give him a few days to think about it. She did. And she finally called him back, and this time he said maybe. And so, yeah, it was exciting. I had chills when she called me. And I said, okay, let's get a DNA going. So I hired a company, not Ancestry, a private company.
Yeah.
And so I sent my dad to Nashville. He lives in Cookeville, Tennessee. He went to Nashville. I flew home. I was in Boston for work. Flew home, went to Orange and did my DNA. He did his. So we had to wait a long week. It was the longest week of my life because, you know, just wishing and hoping I found my dad. And so, yeah, he called me before the DNA result. He says, I'm coming down to visit you. And I said, wait, stop. I go, if you're not my dad, I'm not going to hang out with you, right? But my wife said, you can't be like that. And I said, no, I'm just playing. But I remember that Friday afternoon, they sent me an email, and me and my wife and my daughter were in our backyard. And I couldn't even log in, even though they gave me the password. I was so nervous. So my daughter logged in. And then you open this piece of paper, and it's a paternity test, an actual paternity test.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was reading all these mumbo and jumbo. I'm like, okay, is he or not?
Yeah.
And then you look down right below, and it was 99.995% he was my father.
Oh,
and
wow.
so we cried again in the backyard.
Oh.
And my wife was so happy that finally I found my dad. So I called him. I said, you know what? I just got the result, and I'm your son. And he was so happy. He said, I knew in my heart that you were. And so that's how I found my dad. And so we announced it to the public in front of my Old County Courthouse that I found my father. And then he invited me to do a reunion in Cookeville, Tennessee. So I took my whole family, and we went to Tennessee, and I met so many cousins. I have so many cousins. But it was really nice to meet my half brothers, and I have 3 half brothers and 1 half sister.
One's your age.
Yeah, yeah, 1 is my age. So what makes the story interesting now that we look back is in 1967 in January, my older brother Steve was born, and here comes Hugh in December of 1967.
Oh.
But my dad never knew he had 2 sons
In
67 until now. But unfortunately, my older brother I didn't get to meet. He died young. He had a motorcycle accident, and something happened, and he died.
Yeah.
And so, but I met my other 2 brothers and my sister. And it was nice, and it was a big family when we went there. And I remember my older brother, Steve, he has like 6 kids, and they invited me to go to his cemetery, to his grave. And so I remember it was raining so hard that day. But I told my wife, I gotta go.
Yeah.
And so we were standing there in front of his grave, and it's very emotional because I wish I could have met him.
Yes.
But I couldn't. But I went to support the kids, and they were really appreciative of
You've
that.
been very welcomed by the whole family, correct?
Yeah, you know what? His wife forgave him. She wrote me a letter that says, I've been with your father for over 55 years. I love him then, and I love him more now, and I forgive him, and I accept you as my son. So I thought that was really good.
Wow. Yes.
Very emotional, and it's been a blessing, to be honest with you, just to have a father. Growing up with one, it was hard, and so I'm just happy now. Even though I'm older and he's older, at least we can spend the rest of our lives just to get to know each other better, and just knowing I have a father now.
And you keep in touch very often.
Every day we text.
Yeah.
We text and talk. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, I haven't seen him in 2 years. But I'm planning to go there in September.
Yeah.
And so we're going to meet up in Nashville and hang out for a few days. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that how old is your son?
My son is 32, and my
your
daughter's
daughter?
26.
26. And your son is married?
Yes.
And he has a little one, right?
We have a grandson, Sebastian.
Oh, cute.
I didn't, I love my kids, but man, the grandkids are just so much fun.
There's something special.
I love my grandson, and he's just so adorable. We love him to death.
Oh.
And I always tease my wife. I think I like my grandson better is because, when we get a little tired, we just go drop him off at his parents' house, right? But
no problem.
Yeah,
there.
we love him. He's smart. He's a great kid, a happy kid. I keep telling my son and daughter, man, we need more grandkids, and they're not budging. So
No. Yeah.
So we have one.
Were your son and daughter-in-law or son and daughter as excited as you were as far as finding your dad and knowing the struggle you went through trying to...
I think they were very happy. They have a grandfather now from my side. From my mom's side, they know their grandfather. They grew up with him. But from my dad's side, they're very happy.
Yeah.
My daughter, they text him all the time. They FaceTime each other.
Oh, wonderful.
So yeah, he's been really good. He's a really nice man. And I sincerely believe he didn't know.
Right.
He told me. He said, I didn't know.
No.
I wish I did, or I would have been there for you. And so yeah.
Your the sister that your mom also had. Did she look for her
Yeah,
dad too?
she did.
Yeah.
So after I found my father, I encouraged her to do the ancestry, and she did. And she got lucky. She did find him, but unfortunately, he passed at a young age. Back in the war, there was something called Agent Orange.
Oh, yes.
And so she did go meet his dad, which is her grandfather.
Oh.
And they live in Michigan. And so she flew out there, I believe, a year ago. And his father is like 90 years old. And my sister said it was amazing to meet some of the aunts and stuff.
Right.
And his father, you know, her grandfather gave pictures of her dad.
Okay.
And so I think, you know, I wish she could have found him alive like I did.
Yeah.
But I think it was a closure for my sister, and I'm so happy for her.
Yeah.
Because, you know, there was over 25,000, 30,000 Emiratians that were born during the Vietnam War. And only 5% have found their father. So
For you
that's
to
why,
be one of those 5%.
yeah, I'm one of those 5%.
It's
that
quite.
was lucky. I never thought I would find my dad.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe some were not as patient as you were to try to seek them, or they were turned off by, like you said, some of the fourth and fifth cousins saying, well, what do you want, and all that kind of thing. They got deterred.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a combination. I think, you know, I mean, it would be tough, I think, for any family, right?
Oh, yeah.
50 years later, you get a call that, you know, that might be your daughter or your son. And so I think it's a tough for a family.
It is.
And so I think, you know, I feel bad for all the Emiratians that were born, that some are still in Vietnam, you know, and a lot have come over. But I just wish they could find their father like I did.
Well, you've had such a long journey, but such an interesting one. And again, there's that strength that continues to go through that. And how thankful you are, and it shows in your attitude, but also in the thanks for living in this country and being proud to be an American, and the freedom that you have, and to do what you do for the county, and who knows where you'll end up. As I said, you can keep that motto when you run for president.
That's right. It's in, like you said, it's I take every day, you know, like it's my last day, and I enjoy my life and enjoy what we are offering this country, right?
Yes.
And so for me, you know, to come in my office, I pinch myself every day to say, wow, look where I'm at. I worked hard for it, but look where I'm at. And so that's what I'm proud of, and I'm so happy, you know, when I go out to speak, to try to motivate kids to do the same. And, you know, and I've been a lot of people have reached out to me that are Emiratian like I am. And I try to, you know, encourage them to not give up, right? Keep looking for your dad. You might get lucky, and like I did, because I almost gave up. I really did, because it was tough.
Yeah.
It wasn't
but you had
easy.
that motto.
Yeah.
Never give up.
But I never gave up, so I kept going, and
But
I
that's
found
one
my
of the
dad.
things I'm glad that you are speaking around and telling people your story. And, I mean, relating how the bullying, what you decided to do about that, but also about the struggle, but yet it pays off to dream big, work hard, and never give up. And I know that you were going to be going, I think, next month sometime to speak with...
Yeah, in September.
At
The week after I come back from Tennessee, I'm going to speak at the Aliso Viejo Christian Church. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to motivate the kids and tell them what I went through. And hopefully, you know, they can learn from it and remember what I said and keep going as they go up in the ranks.
The fact they live in a free country and to not take it for granted.
Yes,
because it is something they should be happy about. So
yeah, for sure.
I appreciate so much your sharing your story with us, and I'm going to be excited to share it with the folks here in Laguna Woods.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I hope people who watch it enjoy my story and what I went through, and thank you for having me.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.